Everybody, Dean Home Tech. Hope everybody's doing well today. This is like my 10th try to do this video. Either something keeps coming up and happening. You know how it is when you try to do something. But typically most of my videos are just riding on the road, first take, whatever. But when you're in like an environment where you think is going to be a cool environment, people knock on the door, phone rings, dogs start barking, something happens. But anyway, let's get into this. Yesterday I went over I'm continuing to go over the North Carolina Home Inspector Licensure Board Standards of Practice. And yesterday we went over 1102, which explains what the standards of practice is. And we went over 1103, the purpose and the scope of these standards of practice. Today we're going to go over a very important part, which is 1105, which are the general exclusions. This is a very important part. This is something that I think is very important for people to know. Again, the Home Inspection Licensure Board standards of practice is only the minimum requirements, meaning that we have to do these things in the standards of practice. We have to abide by the standards of practice. There are inspectors like myself that will exceed the standards of practice, but that in no way, shape, or form means that if we report on one thing, that we're required to report on another thing. The reason we may exceed it is because there is a concern, something that we're not required to report on, something we may see that we go ahead and go above and beyond and say, this is a potential issue, this isn't functioning properly. So some people will try to backtrack and say, well, if you're not required to report on that, why don't you report on this? This is not trying to trap somebody or throw somebody under the bus or make them look bad. We're just doing our jobs, and there's some limitations for things that we're not required to inspect. So if we don't inspect something and we're not required to, and it's not on the report, we wasn't required to do it. But if there's something on the report that we wasn't required to report on and we do, there's a reason behind that. Safety, health, something. There's a reason for it. So anyway, I'm going to get into this. This is going to be 1105 general exclusions. Exclusions. These are things we are not required to report on. Things we're not required to report on. And it's kind of a long list here. And there's some added parts to these, some other added sections. And I'll try to get to those as I'm going through. So these are going to be things that home inspectors are not required to report on. First is life expectancy of any component. We are not required to give a life expectancy. If there's a life expectancy in the report, it's just people that want to kind of give you a reference. They're not ballparking. Most manufacturers will go by what their recommendations are, 10 to 15 years on a certain appliance. So, you know, if you don't see it in the report, you know, we're within the standards of practice. Another thing is the causes of the need for a repair. We're not expected to report on the causes of the need for a repair. Simple, plain out, straight up. Also, we're not required to report on the methods, materials, and cost of corrections. So we can't tell what materials need to be used, what methods are used, what correction needs to be made. A lot of inspectors like to take it upon themselves and say, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that. My report's going to be straight up how the proper professional evaluated, because every situation is different. And materials change over years. And, you know, let the proper professional handle that. If it's a permitted item, you want to get permits. Number 4, we're not required to report on the suitability of the property for any specialized use. So if somebody says, hey, I want to turn this house into a B&B, Airbnb. What are you telling me for? That's going to be, you have to deal with the city on that. I you know, I can't consult with you on that. That's a whole different ball game. Here's a biggie. Home inspectors are not required to report on the compliance or non-compliance with codes, ordinances, statutes, regulatory requirements, or restrictions. So I get a lot of people say, hey, Dean, is this up to code? Is this up to code? Is that up to code? There's a fine line here. Trying to see how I can word this. We are not code officials. Code officials are the AHJ authorities having jurisdiction. They work for the municipality, city, state, whoever. So they are the police of codes. So you do something wrong, they're the ones you got to deal with. Home inspector is, we are generalists. We are giving you the general condition of the home at the time and date of inspection. We're like a general physician. If you have an ache or a pain or something going on you're not sure about and you want to get it checked into, you go to a general physician. That general physician may run some tests, may look at some things, evaluate you, and recommend the proper professional, whether it's a electrician, whoever. So that's what we're going to do. He may, a doctor may refer you to a podiatrist or ear, nose, and throat doctor, an allergist, whoever. This kind of goes hand in hand. Another thing is when we report, we don't reference the code, but there are parts of the code that we can interpret into our reports without specifying the exact code. We can report code if we want to do a lot of homework and we want to do a lot of paperwork. I've said this in plenty of videos before. We can, but we have to pull up the first year that it came into compliance and reference numbers and all these numbers, and just, it's a whole lot of work. So we're generalists. I'm not trying to be a code official. I'm just letting you know if there's an issue or not, if it's safe or not, if there's a health issue or not. Okay, we are not required to report on the market value of the property or its marketability. We have no say in the value of the home. That's going to be all along the appraisal lines. The marketing is going to be your agent. We're not required to give the advisability or indivisibility of purchase of the property. Or advise. In other words, we're not required to report on if we can advise you or advise you to purchase the property. I have no interest in the property. I don't care if you buy it or not. I'm just there to report whether it's safe or there's concerns or something that may draw your attention to be a concern. I'm not there to persuade you. And that's always a common question. Would you buy this home? Well, if this were your home, would you buy this home? If you were buying this home, if your daughter was buying this home, if your son was buying your home, if your mom was buying this home, would you? Every situation is different. I don't need another home. I don't want to answer that question for you. That's a question you have to answer. You need to weigh your options. You need to get with your agent and look over the report and do your due diligence and figure out if this is a good fit for you or not. Let's see. Okay, home inspectors are not required to report on any component or system that was not inspected. So that is on a fine line there. We are required to report if we did not, and why we did not report on an item. So if it's an item that we were required to report on, we have to report the reason why we did not report on it. Whether it's was obstructed, whether there was limited space, whether it was something wasn't present, whether something was blocked off, couldn't gain access, it wasn't readily accessible. Just let the client know that it was not inspected and the reason why. That's what the board wants to know. Why didn't you inspect that component? Here's another one, a good one. We are not required to report on the presence or absence of pests such as wood damaging organisms, rodents, or insects. So situations may come up where I'm looking in the crawl space and I see no structural damage. I don't see anything that's alarming. And then a couple months down the road, somebody goes into the house to fix something and the contractor says, hey man, you got termites. And they're like, well, I just had my house inspected a couple months ago and the inspector didn't say nothing about it. They're going to call me and say, hey, I just had so-and-so under my house and he said that there was termites under there. Why didn't you guys say that? Well, that's because I'm not a termite inspector. I'm not required to report on that. If there was structural damage, I would have made a note that there was structural damage. So that's why you want to request a WDI, which would be wood destroying insect inspection. WDIR would be wood destroying insect report. So people get pest inspection and a wood destroying insect inspection all confused. They're not even close to each other. One causes damage to the structure. The other ones are just a nuisance that poop under your house and they store and live and eat and whatever under your house. So big difference. It's not a pest inspection. It's a wood destroying insect inspection, WDI. We are not required to report on cosmetic damage, underground items, or items not installed. So if something hasn't been installed, we can't report on it because we don't know if it's functioning or not, or how it's been installed. Or we can't report on underground items because we can't see underground. Cosmetic damage. Generally, we don't report on cosmetic damage. Cosmetic damage is mostly going to be paint, deteriorated paint. Maybe somebody splattered some paint on the side of a house, or maybe there's some stains in a rug or some stains on some flooring. That's all cosmetic. Like a scratch on here and a scratch on there, that's all cosmetic. We're not required to report on the presence or absence of systems installed to control or remove suspected hazardous substances. So that could pertain to a radon mitigation system. That may pertain to some type of, some people have the UV systems installed on the air units that like zap stuff. We don't report on that stuff. That's outside the scope of a home inspection. Somebody may have some type of water filtration system. We do not report on those items. Somebody may report, maybe there's some type of air quality system. We do not report on those items. We don't report on generators. We do not report on whole house vacuum systems. We do not report on hot tubs. There's a difference in a hot tub and a jacuzzi tub. A jacuzzi tub is going to be in your bathroom that you can take a bath in and whatever. A hot tub is going to be outside or in your garage or on the deck or whatever that's outside the scope of a home inspection. We are not required to report on or offer warranties or guarantees of any kind. So we're not required to offer warranties or guarantees of any kind. I've discussed this before, and a lot of you know my feelings on this. There are third-party companies out there that offer home warranties added to a home inspection. Like it may be, there's some companies locally that offer home inspection and it comes with warranties. Well, they purchase these through a third-party company at a very, 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 very low price. And what that other company does is they put them on a list for vendors that have this service, and it goes back to their, it's kind of like a marketing deal. That's all it is. I've done a lot of research on these companies, and I've done a lot of research with veteran inspectors from years past to most recent that have used these services and are not very happy with these services. The things about these services are they're very limited. There's a lot of disclaimers. A lot of people don't realize It all matters on the age of your house, the type of systems and pipes and plumbing and stuff you have, or type of HVAC or whatever. Just like with any insurance or warranty, there's going to be small print, and there's going to be disclaimers and all that good stuff to not want to pay, or pay a very small, teeny fraction of that. So a lot of these are gimmick, a smoke and mirror type deal. Hey, we offer this sewer guard and this roof protection and structural this and that and that. That's all BS. I know a lot of people that these companies will not pay for, have not paid for, and that's why they're free to you. I mean, if you're not paying for it, what do you think? What do you think is going to come out of it? Not a lot. So they're all smoke and mirrors. If you're using a home inspection company that uses these systems, I kind of be wary. Don't expect anything if you do have an issue. Home inspectors are not required to calculate the strength, adequacy, or efficiency of any system or component. We're not engineers, we're not architects, we're not general contractors. There's a lot of home inspectors that are general contractors, that may be engineers or maybe this, but when you're doing home inspections, you're doing home inspections. If you want to wear that other hat, then that's a different whole ball game. But so like if I see, if I'm in a garage now and I see people have added storage units to their ceiling, like they supposedly have them installed into the rafters of the joist, floor joist in their garage. There's a new little metal racks that people have hanging down. They put like bicycles or boxes or totes up there. I've got a statement about that because I don't know the integrity, efficiency of those systems. I don't know who installed that system, but I do report on that because I think it's a safety hazard. Because if you hire some jackleg or somebody to come in there and install that, and you store stuff up there, and then one day you're in the garage and it falls down, that's a problem. We're not required to report on that, but I do. And the only part that I would report on is the efficiency. I don't know the strength, I don't know the integrity or nothing, so I do have a statement for that. Let's see. Home inspectors are not required to operate any system or component that is shut down or otherwise inoperable. And that goes along with power and water, or any system that's shut down. So I've been ridiculed so many times by agents that's supposed to be professional. They don't understand the side that I'm on, the liability side, because they kind of got egg on their face a couple times because of something like this. Because I let every agent know, or if you don't know, you should know, that I'm not going to turn on any breakers that are off. I'm not going to turn on any main water valves that are off, because I don't know why it's off. If there's a safety issue, if there's a repair being done, why it's off. I have no idea why it's off. I don't want to flip it on and cause an issue. I've done it in the past doing general repairs from a previous business, and I turned on a breaker that was off, and boom, I've turned on water that was off, and water going everywhere. I've been in those situations before. And I had one agent that just blasted me, but she wouldn't turn the water on either. She waited till the buyer got there, had the buyer turn the water on. There was a basement. Guy turned the water on. I'm still upstairs doing my inspection, and she's just blabbing, being just so disrespectful. And we're, going through the upstairs, and we get to the downstairs, and there was a supply line, a copper supply line, had a pinhole in it, water just spraying out, water all over the basement floor. And I walked halfway down there and looked in the floor. I was like, there's water all over this basement floor. I said, that's probably why they had the water shut off. She felt kind of stupid after that. Let's see. Okay. We are not required to operate any system or component that does not respond to normal operating controls. We are not required to move personal items, panels, furniture, equipment, plant life, soil, snow, ice, debris, or any debris or anything that obstructs access. So I've said this many times before. That's why I have my seller's checklist. leave us space to get to the appliances, the gas logs, the water heater, the HVAC, any type of meters, any type of valves, access to rooms, doors, you know, I'm not moving anything. We're not required to move these things. And people say, oh, it's just to this or it's just to that. You don't understand. When I post a video, guys, it's like, well, just move it over. You don't understand. Somebody could have just glued something together and you move it and then it breaks again. You lift up a box, the bottom falls out and there's something sentimental in there. You know, that's your butt. You can't just move people's property and go through their stuff. You got to respect the person's house that you're in. Let's see what else we got here. Home inspectors are not required to determine the presence or absence of any suspected adverse environmental condition or hazard substance, including mold, toxins, carcinogens, noise, contaminants in a building or in soil, water, and air. So that's why we offer additional testing. We offer air quality testing. We offer radon testing, mold, fungal growth, stuff like that. If you want to do like environmental for like the soil, for anybody that may have a oil tank or something, that's going to be a whole different company right there. We're not required to determine the effectiveness of any system installed to control or remove suspected hazardous materials. Not required to determine the housing energy rating. We're not required to inspect heat recovery and similar whole house ventilation systems or predict future condition, including failure of components. We cannot predict the future, how long something's going to last. It may be functioning the day I'm inspecting the house, but it may stop an hour later. Who knows? We're not required to project any operating costs of components. How much is it going to cost if I run this so-and-so? If I put my treadmill in here, how much is my energy bill going to be? I don't know. That's not a question for me. We're not required to evaluate acoustical characteristics of any system or components. We're not required to inspect equipment or accessories that are not listed as components to be inspected in this section or disturb insulation except for as required in Rule 1114 of this section. And 1114 is insulation. We're only required to move insulation around plumbing pipes and around the base band perimeter of the crawl space, basement, or what so, to gain access under a deck door, a porch, a doorway area. So plumbing pipes and where there may be a door underneath, because where there's a door, there's potential for water and moisture to come in. Plumbing pipes, same thing, potential for moisture intrusion. Home inspectors shall not offer or perform any act or service contrary to law or offer or perform engineering, architectural, plumbing, electrical, or any other job functioning requiring an occupational license in the jurisdiction where the inspection is taking place unless the inspector holds a valid occupational license. So if you want to do engineering, architectural, plumbing, whatever, and you want to throw on another hat and do that and take on that liability, that's on you. In that case, the home inspector shall inform the client that the home inspector is so licensed and therefore qualified to go beyond this section and perform additional inspections beyond those within the scope of the standards of practice. So if you're a GC and you're an electrician and you're this and you're that and you want to give advice, you go ahead. But here's the thing, you're breaching a lot of things. One, you cannot perform repairs on homes that you inspect within a year. So that is a conflict of interest. So if you want to offer engineering, you're crossing a fine line there. I think it's a conflict of interest. GC, same thing. If you want to go about, it's just a conflict of interest, man. I would not even walk that line. That's a line I would not want to step over. You may be qualified, but not on the home you're inspecting. That doesn't look right, sound right, or feel right. So anyway, guys, so that's that section. That's 1105, general exclusions. And then tomorrow I'm going to go over structural components, and you're going to know which structural components that we shall inspect, and that's going to be 1106 structural components. And it's not that big of a section, pretty straightforward. But anyway, guys, I'm going to get out of here. Dean Young, HomeTechNC.com.